Trying to come to grips with what spiritual enlightenment actually is can be a confusing subject. It can be difficult to understand. When we consider Christ consciousness, aren't we really claiming inwardly that we're coming face to face with the truth in our spiritual enlightenment? Hello, everyone. My name is James Nussbaumer, and I'm the author of these two books. The first one is called The Master of Everything. It's a story of mankind in the world of illusion that we call life. And its sequel is Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, Lessons from A Course in Miracles. They're both on sale everywhere books are sold and published by Ozark Mountain Publishing Company. I hope if you don't have a copy that you'll go ahead and get a copy of this. Let me add that there is no doubt that we all have had thoughts that at some deep level that we're all related. I previously wrote in The Master of Everything about a more profound lesson that if we go deeper yet into our higher consciousness, we discover that we are not separate minds at all, but that we are actually the same mind. We're one. This is the concept of the Christ mind. It's the idea that at our innermost core, as deep as we can go, we are not just identical, but we are actually the same being. I know that's hard to grasp because of generations of the way we were taught, but all those lessons in the past were just getting us to where we're coming to now and trying to really grab onto this. In my first book, The Master of Everything, we went on to learn that the one begotten Son of God does not mean only Jesus and not us, but rather Jesus was here to teach us that together we are the whole one child of God, not separate identities, the whole one child of creation. I've used the word in my book, the Son, in both of my books actually, as a genderless term representing the oneness of Christ, as a psychological term, our real consciousness. No religion holds a copyright on this one truth. There's no special rights that anyone holds on the term Christ or Son of God and so forth. We've learned that Christ is the whole Son of God, personalized, and refers to the common thread of divine love that has woven the innermost essence of the human mind while we're in this world. To explain this a little bit deeper and more understandable, consider how a lamp with no electricity casts no light, nor does electricity without the lamp, correct? Together, however, they cast out all darkness. This is the truth about us that is eternal, never changing, but we have forgotten all about that as time has gone by. Instead, we identify with the notion of a small, separate self, and not the idea of reality or Christ consciousness that is shared everywhere. We learned how each generation looks to previous generations for lessons and recognize that this is why history goes on to repeat itself, absurdly, actually. We continue to analyze the darkness in us in order to reach the light. And we only get more of the darkness when we continue to analyze it, because that's our focus. I continue this discussion at greater lengths in my second book, Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom. I continue that discussion that if we shine our natural inner light, our inner illumination, looking squarely at the darkness, if we shine our inner light on our darkened thoughts, looking squarely at these darkened thoughts, allowing it to draw closer to the light, in other words, bringing the darkness to the light, as the darkness approaches the light, it fades away. The darkness is gone, and because of the light drawing the darkness in. Our inner light extinguishes darkness and not the other way around. We are not separate from God, nor are we separate from one another. You and I are connected deep down within. We are the extended thought of our Creator. We are whole And we're actually genderless, brother and sisters in the family of God. I use the term brother and sisters in that gender term only because that's what we understand as humans. That maybe if we can go beyond that gender of brother sister just to oneness, that's what we really are. But mostly, we do choose to identify with duality, and that's what the ego is all about, which I talk quite a bit about in both my books. And we experience ourselves as the body instead of the real us from within. From that unreality of who we are as a body, that really is the unreality of who we are, our identification with the body and its boundaries, ruled by the separated mind, which is the ego, we form perceptions of the world based on time, don't we? Think about that. We learn that a separated consciousness called the ego-based mind only thinks that it has split away from the whole mind, sending us spinning into the dream of life here in this world. But this is where the Holy Spirit, which is our inner divine guidance system, our light, if you will, that's drawing the darkness to us. And as the darkness comes to us, it fades away. And after time, all that is left is light. That's the Holy Spirit's mission. And it's a term I guess we could use possibly for the real universe. A Course in Miracles has helped me to see that the Holy Spirit is the psychological aspect of our whole mind that heals the split and fragmenting thoughts of separate identities, bringing us back to wholeness, or where we think we are being brought back to. What I mean is, or where we think we are being, I guess you could say, brought back since we never were not there. What I'm trying to say, it's helping us, our real self, the light that we are, come forward in our mind as the darkness approaches. And as we come forward in our mind, the darkness in our lives fades away. In other words, we experience the reality of light over darkness, or more simply yet, rising above adversity, overcoming our problems, overcoming our fears. That is where the light is taking over the darkness. But the ego continues to hound us. That's the part of us that thinks we're separate from the one mind of God. That ego-based thought system that we have continues to hound us with its own interpretation about our lives. In the first book, we took a look at how the ego-based mind uses guilt to make us fearful if we choose to go against the grain, so to speak, of the teachings of past generations. The efforts of the ego in all of us to reinforce our fears play out in a ridiculous yet powerful logic, often responsible for many laws of our land. In the first book, we looked closely at the concept of sin as being unreal, because it is of the separated mind that only dreams that sin is real. But we can circumvent the perceptions of the ego-based mind by sensing our true reality, the light within us. We considered in the first book how perceptions is not a bad thing at all. It's just not knowledge. I used the example of a rainbow in my first book, The Master of Everything. The example of the rainbow where you may perceive the colors and the number of colors slightly different from my perception of it. But we were both right about the rainbow. So that part of us is knowledge, but how we perceive things in all of our the human aspect of us is slightly a little off course. How we perceive things brought me to a psychological interpretation of the Trinity for myself. It brought me to an interpretation of what the Trinity really is. The one mind of God, the Creator, the wholeness of creation. Thus we can say, that the Trinity is our model. We can say that the Trinity is our model for the whole mind, unseparated. It's the oneness that we are. Many of you that know me know that I had spent 8 years in prison for a foolish securities violation. And in this first book, yes, as a financial advisor for 25 years, I described that in my book. After 25 years, and I had done very well in that industry, I crossed an illegal line, and an example setter judge wanted vengeance, and he sentenced me to 10 years in prison, where I served 8 years. And while I was there, I write about in my first book a murder that I witnessed in an adjoining prison cell, which ultimately proved to me my own inner strength at the time, where I needed it desperately. And due to my realization of our mind being naturally abstract, which means we just concretely cannot really understand how the mind works, but why I came to understand where death is not real at all. And isn't that what Jesus tried to prove to us in the resurrection? The mind's concentrated whole essence, the oneness of God sustaining everything, has no separate parts that may die. You know, we think we see death in the concreteness, in the concrete of separate identities, which we believe to be real. But it's the ego in us all. It's separateness that cannot understand what the abstract is really about. And that's why it's so hard for us to piece together the concept of the one mind of creation and that we are of it. But as humans, we don't have to analyze it and try to dissect it, because that's just the ego sneaking in the back door on us, wanting us to just misunderstand further. So the ego can only see the concrete. But with the Holy Spirit, our inner divine guidance system, healing us, we discover the difference between true reality and its opposite, the unreality of being split away from the wholeness of God. I hope that makes sense. And like I said, don't really try to dissect it too much. The whole point of this is just to try to understand that we are one, and we're all after the same thing in this world, aren't we? And that's why we all love helping each other out. By the way, I'd like to quickly add, where helping one another out is concerned, I have a system that I use to claim real abundance in my life, and it's by true extension of oneself. It's a home-based networking business allowing people everywhere to have the income that they rightfully deserve. It's about helping others get what they want in life. And I'm so pleased with the results that I'm getting. It's real and run and operated by real good people. Real good people are involved. So if you'd like to learn more, and you're at my YouTube channel here, in this YouTube, right down below in the description box, you'll see a link to my safe website, to the Real Abundance page of my website, and all the information is there for you with links that you can click on to find out more. I wish the best to you, and I hope you're thinking a lot about your natural gifts that you have to share with the rest of the world. And all I would like to say to you is I wish you the best, and here's to the true reality that's within you. Thanks again for listening to me. God bless.